Welcome back to First Take on the road for the U.S. Open here in Flushing Meadows, the final major of the 2019 tennis season. Both Serena and Federer will be taking the court today. But this is First Take, and we're going to talk a little bit of hoops now. What's the most important quality if you're going to build a team around a superstar? The Hoop Collective crew debated the topic and redrafted the league's best players based on a 4-year max contract. Here you see it. The top 5 is Giannis, followed by Luka, Kawhi, Harden, and AD. Are you seeing number 12 and 13, Stephen and Max? Kevin Durant, LeBron, all the way down. Max Kellerman, should they be a little higher?
They should be lower on the list. In fact,
wow,
it is ridiculous.
Really? I thought we were going to be calm today.
It is ridiculous to put KD or LeBron on this list at all. They don't belong on the list. To start a franchise, you realize LeBron turned 112 years old this year? You want a 112-year-old?
Let's pause for 1 second. Before you go further.
Such an ageist.
Before you go further. Let's take an argument other than age.
You can't. It's starting a franchise.
Because no. What I'm saying is that a lot of times when we're talking basketball and other people are talking basketball, you're looking at the skill set because it's a given. If somebody's 35 years of age and you only got about 3 years left, it's a given. Like, for example, who wouldn't take the Greek freak over LeBron?
Right.
I'm saying if you want to start based on their age.
Well, I'm saying you have to start based on a variety of issues.
I'm saying to you, kid, because there's no argument about age. I'm not going to pick somebody that's about to walk out the league.
That's my problem with the list.
I'm saying that's it. I'm looking at skills.
That's for listen. If you're talking about skills, then LeBron is either 1 or 2 right now.
Okay.
But we're not talking about who do I want for this upcoming season.
Okay.
We're saying to start a franchise based on a 4-year max deal. Now, KD is considerably younger. If KD wasn't hurt, he'd be high on the list. He is coming off an Achilles. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? I get that Tom Brady just won back-to-back Super Bowls since I made my Cliff prediction, although clearly he wasn't the same player this year.
Right.
Nevertheless, that makes him a giant exception. Kevin Durant is trying to do something that has almost never been done before. Even Dominique Wilkins wasn't quite the same. So KD doesn't have to be exactly the same to still be an all-star player. But at 30 years old, he likely won't play at all this year. Then he'll play the following year and probably won't be back to being whatever he can be, which is probably only going to be, if he's lucky, 80% of what he once was until the following season. So why would I start a franchise with a guy who's only going to give me elite, you hope, production 3 years from now, 2 years from now? LeBron, no. KD, no.
Okay, first of all, I disagree. But I'm not going to get into the age thing. And the reason why I say that is because the folks try to manipulate these things. I'm not accusing Max of doing that, but I can't stand when they do that because the reason why the guys are on the list to begin with is because of their skill set. And a lot of times we're debating basketball skills. Where you are now as a basketball skilled player, I'm not talking age. I'm just talking talent. Talent-wise, LeBron James, for anybody that have LeBron James outside of the top 5, they need to be drug tested immediately. They make no sense. KD out of the top 5, same principle.
Even with the Achilles.
It don't matter to me. I'm telling you right now, here's the deal. Dominique Wilkins, I'm tired of that comparison. Dominique Wilkins was the human highlight reel. He could jump out of the moon. Kevin Durant could damn near dunk standing up and tippy-toeing. He's 6'11" with a 7'6" wingspan, for crying out loud, okay?
But Dominique was a success story.
Yeah, Dominique was a success story, but I'm saying to you, but what made Dominique was the human highlight film that he was because he was a dunker. That is not Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is a sniper. Kevin Durant is a marksman extraordinaire. Kevin Durant is going to come back, and mark my words, he is going to average 25 in his sleep. You can book it. And Klay Thompson's going to come back and remind you why he's one of the greatest shooters this game has ever seen, too. Remember, I said that. LeBron James, 6'9", 260, but the basketball savant that he is, what he brings to the table in terms of his intellect, not just his skill, but to have the mass and the girth to go with it, plus the acumen, the ability to teach the game and play it while he's on the court with you, says something. When you talk about building a franchise, you're talking about formulating pieces around a particular individual to make things work. LeBron James could do that in his sleep.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
That's how I view it.
Fine.
I think easily top 5, both of them. And LeBron's number 1 to me.
But Stephen A., that's really not the question here. If I'm asking you if you want to build a franchise, so you should take age into consideration. Although here's an argument for LeBron or KD. You could say something like, I don't care how old they are. Over the next several seasons, I think LeBron is worth more than a guy who may or may not ever be that good 5 years from now. I could buy that argument. But I'm talking about culture setter. Like you want a Damian Lillard on your team, right? I'm talking about age, injury history, the position they play, the value they now have, the value they'll have projected over the next 4 years. Who would you start a franchise with?
Because, all right, there's several guys that I would start a franchise with. For example, I think Russell Westbrook should be on this list. You know why? Because he's an assassin. This dude he's a killer.
You want to start a franchise with a guy who's in athletic decline?
No. Again, I'm not talking about him now. I'm saying to his skill set and what he's brought to the table for his career, I'm looking for somebody like that. That's how I think about it. Right. Of course, I'm looking at a guy's age and health issues. I'm saying, all right, that's different. But when you talk about a list in terms of building a franchise, these guys will get away. And if you caught them at the NBA games, what they would tell you is, I'm looking at the cat's skill set. And from a skill set perspective, what you bring to the table, those guys matter. I saw the Greek Freak. Love the Greek Freak. Greek Freak's got a bright future ahead of him or whatever. I saw him neutralize in those last 4 games against Toronto. That kind of stuff matters. I saw them back off of him and dare him to shoot a jump shot.
There's an expansion team. Stephen A. Smith wins the expansion team. He owns the expansion team. You're not going to be good necessarily right now, but you're building a franchise. All right,
that's a different category.
Who are you taking?
I would tell you Anthony Davis.
Number one?
I'd probably number one.
What about the Freak or Zion?
Zion?
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm thinking
Pull up
box
the
office
list.
there.
I want to see the list again while we have
Zion's
the
ticket
hoop
sales.
collection.
That counts too.
I'm just saying Zion's ticket sales.
If that's
why I would put him on the
counts
list.
too.
But I would tell you,
Here's the list if you need to have some more names or what you disagree with.
Listen, here's my point.
Yeah.
Steph Curry has to be considered in my top 5 because he's the greatest shooter we've ever seen.
Okay.
And in the game today, where I mean, you could literally get called for foul for passing gas, for crying out loud. I mean, Steph Curry, the marksman that he is, I can't ignore that. Kawhi Leonard on both ends of the floor, we see what he does. I understand it. James Harden, unstoppable, one-on-one, but I don't know if I would have him in the top 5 because James Harden is great for James Harden, but the pieces around you, a lot of times you're going to be standing around. I don't know if that's good. Luka Doncic, to me, the only reason he's on that list is because he's from Europe. I'm not saying he can't play. He can play, but he don't belong on that list. He doesn't belong on that list. The Greek Freak clearly does. Anthony Davis clearly does. I'm looking at guys like that.
Look, I think a bunch of guys don't belong on this list, and yes, partly it's because of age. James Harden's a 30-year-old player whose defense has improved but has not played well in the playoffs when you need him most in pivotal moments. I'm not having James Harden in my top 5. Steph Curry, you could argue, even with his age, should be there because he sets the right tone for a franchise. He's unselfish. His shooting ability is absurd. His handles, the whole thing. So even though he's 30 years old, you may say, my franchise over the next 4 years, give me Steph. Trae Young's not on the list. Boy, he gave Doncic some run at the end there. I think Trae Young, I think Doncic should be way high. I think Zion Williamson is way too low. If I'm starting a franchise, I'm betting that Zion Williamson will be a superstar, as Stephen A. said, box office, and he's still a baby.
So you like Luka at 2 because Stephen A.
Maybe 2's a little bit high, but Luka way up there. Yeah.
He can play. Luka can play. I understand that. But what I'm thinking, the only reason why him and Zion are on that list is because of box office appeal. I'm not saying they can't play. Please don't get me wrong. But Luka is a rookie of the year. Obviously, he can play. But in the same breath, compared to those other guys, I'm not putting them on that level. And in the case of Zion, let's face reality. We're looking at Zion and fantasizing about what he's going to be. Because of that, he's got box office appeal that most of those guys do not have.
I'll say one more guy.
I can understand that.
I'll say one more guy, and I mentioned him earlier because of, again, culture.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard.
Yes.
Damian Lillard is not only the next thing below an MVP candidate as a player on the court, is in his physical prime with years to come, you would think.
Loyalty.
But the tone setter, the way Giannis is a tone setter in Milwaukee, the fact that he wants to stay there, cultivate his own team, be competitive, sees the other team as the enemy. I love that.
And all I'm saying is, Max is not wrong. I'm just saying that when you put up a list like that, that's not what most people are thinking about. That's all I'm saying. If you go to basketball arenas and they start debating you about basketball, they're talking strictly about a cat's game. We understand age and nutrition. I'm saying we understand age and nutrition. That factors in, and you're not going to want somebody. We understand box office appeal. We get all of that. But what you're really, really talking about, if you start debating the meats and bones about basketball talent, you're talking about skill set. Who's what? Who brings what to the table?
Stephen
That's
A.
what I'm saying.
If back in the day, after Jordan's second three-peat, someone said, you're starting a franchise, you want Jordan or Shaq. No one thought Shaq was as good as Jordan. But if anyone was starting a franchise, they'd have taken Shaq because he was a baby.
But that's my point, which is why it wouldn't be a debate, because he's a baby and Jordan's about to retire.
Yeah, but the debate might be the order. So you might say something like, the freak is here, but I think maybe he hasn't reached his limit yet, so I'm going to put him number one because I think he can get even better. You might say Zion Williamson maybe box office, but I'm not sure he'll ever be an MVP. I wouldn't put him in my top 5.
I'm saying to you convolute basketball arguments, and I respect it. I'm just saying for me, I'm talking about your skill. What you bring
leave it on that note.
Period.
I'm
Everything
saying KD and LeBron just got some bulletin board material for this upcoming season, and KD's comeback recovering from that injury. When we come back here on First Take, a little football to get to, everybody. Did you hear the warm welcome that Josh Gordon got? Stephen A., how do you feel about that?
You'll find out.
We'll find out right after the break. Plus, the Queen has arrived. Yes, sir. Serena Williams, everybody.
I got to go see her.
She's going to take the court at 1:30 on ESPN. But in the meantime, where does she rank on the list of most dominant athletes ever? We'll debate it next.
The NFL season